Hey, I'm Inko Cat, and in this show, we bring you the most inspiring stories from female entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators in our ecosystem, the Guild community. Welcome, Yuliya Tarasava, the co-founder and CEO of CNote, here today to the Guild Show.
And nice to see you again.
We've known each other for a while, Yuliya, and we just connected over some other things that connect in our private lives, which is super exciting, which involves kite surfing. So I'm just going to say so much. So if you're also a kite surfer, you may want to connect with us. So Yuliya, we are here today to talk about your company CNote, which is an incredible concept in the fintech space, I think. And so I couldn't do you justice. So I'll let you explain what CNote is and what inspired you to start this company.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anne, for having me here. And thank you everyone for listening in. So CNote, we actually started CNote about a little over 5 years ago. As today, I remember the time, it was actually right around Thanksgiving 6 years ago when Kat and I, we decided to commit to doing a company together. And CNote was technically born back then. So CNote was really started out of both our passions and kind of a commitment to fight the racial, gender, and economic injustice here in the United States. So the mission of the company is to close the wealth gap through or via financial innovation. And then, we keep saying that how can really change, but the most important thing for us to really stay committed to that mission. And what we're doing right now, being on that mission, is we help retail and institutional clients to put their capital to work in underserved communities around the country. So technically, CNote is an impact investing platform where investors, be it small, be it large, can put money, and we deploy the money around the country, focused on solving very important problems. It could be financial inclusion, it could be racial equality, it could be building affordable housing, it could be fighting poverty, it could be helping with education issues. So it's very broad, and we are working with a lot of different clients. But again, going back to the mission, what's really important to us is that whatever we do, however we do it, the mission has to stay the same, which is closing the wealth gap.
Oh, that's amazing. And there is such a big wealth gap, right, in the United States and also worldwide. And, that's what we talk about a lot when we talk about angel investing too. Even there, we have that wealth gap, right? So now tell me, if I'm an investor on CNote, and I actually was an investor on CNote, so telling me, how do you go through that journey of becoming an investor? And, do I need to be accredited, or is it really just a checking account? Tell us what that journey looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we have different type of investors. It could be you as an individual just deciding that you want to do something more with your money, and you want to put part of your savings or investment portfolio into impact investments. And we work in the space of fixed income and cash investment, meaning something that has a little bit more stable return over the period of time, not necessarily the highest return, but also the risk is much smaller, obviously, when you invest in fixed income and cash. And so if you're a retail investor, it's actually pretty straightforward. You just come on mycnote.com, you open an account, and you put money towards different products that we have available. We have products that does have certain minimums, and it has kind of like a more specific impact theme associated with it, like gender equality, for example, or racial equity. Or it could be something broad, like if you just really don't want to choose, or don't want to kind of like choose one over another, you can just say, hey, I really just care about financial inclusion, I really just care about, again, fighting the wealth gap, or closing the wealth gap. And so you can put something, you can put your money in something kind of like a broad product, which we call flagship fund, and It's something that is available to everyone. There's no minimum, there's no restrictions. You don't have to be an accredited investor. Again, I have to say, like, I'm not an investment advisor, so I'm not encouraging you to go and without consulting, consulting with your investment advisor, just kind of like doing your own research. It's just really just kind of like explaining. It could be pretty simple. It could be pretty straightforward. You don't even have to have like a Schwab account or anything like that. And the money is really being funded, or the account, your CNote account is being funded by just connecting your checking account. So that's going to be the journey for like a regular investor. And then when we get kind of like your request, or like we think about it like as an interest, you express interest investing in impact, then we aggregate all this request and we match it with the demand that we see from the communities, right? So it could happen that just before you express the interest, a hurricane happened in, I don't know, Louisiana area. They really need funds to actually restore, rebuild the community. We get the request from our partners on the ground there. And so like we will put your funds to work in that specific community. So for us, it's really important not just to kind of like take the money and deploy it, whatever. We really want to optimize for the impact. And that's why we kind of like think about this needs-based matching mechanism, where we receive your interest and we really match it with the demand that exists in communities around the country.
And when you say hurricane, then obviously you're not saying you're donating the money there, but you're investing it in businesses and business owners there that are building awesome, positive businesses with a positive return on investment, hopefully, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for us, it's not, again, we are big believers that, obviously there's always a role for charity, right? And certain issues could not be solved or supported or, get otherwise upheld by charity. And that's going to be the best vehicle for that. In our case, I'm a big believer, and maybe that's connected to the fact that I actually myself come from a traditional financial space. So I actually, spent over a decade just building traditional financial product. And it was really like, it was always very interesting to me to see that, I would work with clients that have enormous amount of money and they still want to maximize the return of the investment, just to take that investment and actually put it, into charities or distribute it as donations, right, to different causes that they care about. So the big question for me was, how can we actually bring it all together, right? So how can we actually figure out and build the opportunities and build the products where it's not just, one or another, but there's actually opportunity to do both. And I also think like it's a sustainable, it's a more kind of like sustainable way to support and to help. And, for us, like when, I think one of their, I know we wanted to talk about impact. And when I think about the impact that we're creating, like we can definitely think about, again, the restoring communities and building communities that are safer and building communities that are more economically secure. And I also want to think about, kind of like all the businesses that we supported. And it's not just something like, hey, like we give you money that, I don't know, you can go and help with, buying food or buying some of the educational supplies for your children. But it's really giving, thinking about this capital like as a tool to build something bigger, right? So like it's a tool to help that woman of color to actually build the business that can like multiply over the period of time, and that impact of her business on her community can just like grow exponential, over a period of time, because of the jobs, because of the revenue that she's bringing back into the community. So yeah, so I'm a big believer that there's still unexplored opportunity when it comes to really using capital like as a tool for change.
I love the fact that you're really empowering the people and the business owners, and which is, a topic with a big question mark in the charity space, right? So love it that you bring it all together, and that me as a customer, I can still get a positive return on that, and even a fixed interest rate too in some of your products, right? Where it's not just like my cash sitting in some checking account making 0. whatever percent, if that, and with inflation it's totally equaled out right now, right? So that was something that I really loved, that I can put my money, I know it's doing something good, I don't have to manage it, right? And at the same time I do get a positive interest rate there.
Yeah,
really awesome. So now you mentioned you were in the investment industry before, because, if somebody, an entrepreneur, comes up with an idea like that, obviously you need to have a little bit of expertise in the fintech space.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's heavily regulated, right? And then on top of that, you have to educate the end customer who only understands maybe stocks, maybe a checking account, but is maybe unfamiliar with the whole impact investing space. So how did you overcome all that?
I probably would say that we haven't overcome this yet, just because I feel like it's a journey that you just are constantly on, right? Like when we got an approval from SEC to offer this product to everyone, this was just kind of like the first step, because now we have to comply with all the regulations and just make sure that, you know, we supply all the reports, you know, like we put the right language on the website, right? We understand kind of like what are the new rules being issued in our space, so we don't overstep certain limits. So yeah, so I would say this is probably the process that just like constantly happening and ongoing. And when it comes to education, it's exactly the same thing. Like I'm a big believer, you know, like when you get a customer on board, it's just kind of like half of the battle, right? Like you then just kind of like need to keep that customer as long as you can. And so giving the story about what your money is really doing, explaining how that money really fits, or like how this specific product fits into your investment portfolio. Again, also like making sure that we're not giving investment advice, right? Just because we're not an investment advisor. So it's I feel like it's constantly like working a little bit of on eggshells, just because like you just never want to say something but you're not supposed to. And I think it's really, I mean, it's just to summarize all that, like it is difficult, it is hard, and I think this is probably like one of the hardest things for everyone who is trying to enter like the new market, the new category. And I do want to believe that we actually created this like new category and we exploring the new market. And so would I want that to be much faster and easier? Absolutely. Like I think we all want it to be. I also want to, operate obviously, legally in compliance with the constraints that I have, and also, understanding that, we also need to like narrow down to the segment of customers that, we believe that at some point we can convert into being a client, right? Like I think again, like I might have a mission that, I absolutely want everyone to be an impact investor and our products to be in everyone's investment portfolio, right? Or being a part of their savings strategy. At the same time, like I also understand that, again, as we know, in the United States, the financial education is just like so low. And so I also have to be very realistic and probably pragmatic, right? Thinking about, okay, like what are the customers that I feel like, I can convert, because at the end of the day, there's also a business that I have to run, right? There's also CAC and LTVs and all that fun numbers that I have to calculate. And so like how much money and how much time I can really spend on the customer to try to convert them, no matter how much, how passionate I feel about, getting CNote into every single, portfolio in the United States.
Yeah, and thankfully there is more spotlight on this topic now, I feel like, compared to maybe 6 years ago, right? With ESG hitting a new sort of high in terms of mentions, and also more people understanding that there is different asset classes. And I think the apps like Robinhood or Public also open up a little bit more to the younger generations, and understanding what they can do with the money, right? And I think specifically of women too. And so many women have their money in cash, which is horrible if you think about it, and the lost opportunities there. And we all kind of want to put the money where our mouths are, right? And so I think there's a ton of opportunity there, and there's a whole wave coming, and having products like yours that are really at the forefront of this is incredible, and it will hopefully help you also get a lot of more customers, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's interesting you said, like, absolutely, ESG has been on the rise, and I'm so like excited that we actually, really ride in the right wave, right? And again, we just started just in the time where that wasn't the case, right? But we were just a big believer that that's going to become a case, in the next couple of years, and you were right. And so, yes, absolutely. Like ESG is more popular. People pay more attention. People do want to invest with impact. So it's definitely more, on the top of people's mind. At the same time, and I would still probably say that it probably converted like a few more people. But I think unfortunately, like it still hasn't been kind of like conversion, it was like 50% of success rate. And I think it is still goes back to like the financial education and financial kind of like understanding in this country is just like so low. And so like I think if anything, it kind of like got me more passionate and more excited to work on that kind of like financial education, like one-on-one, right? And so like kind of like outside of CNote, right? Like if and when and when I have time, like that's the thing that I'm actually really thinking about is because that's I think like I still believe like this is where we need to start to get people just more comfortable even talking about money. And then after that, we can already, introduce it. Okay, like now that you even like feel comfortable talking about money, guess what? Like we can also even do better with your money, not just thinking about the return, but also creating some impact.
Awesome. And I have to connect you with a few guild members who are working in the financial advice space, very specifically thinking about impact investing and also helping people and their clients create the portfolios they really feel good about, right? And they choose which companies they invest in and what's important to them. So now if you look back, I mean, it's been a long journey, right, with CNote so far. Like, can you tell us where you are now in terms of the milestones, how much money you've raised, how much money is deployed, any success stories on the platform you'd like to share?
Sure. I mean, there's always, I feel like it's, when I talk about CNote, it's always as if I was talking about my child, right? That, I personally don't have children just yet, but again, every time I think about CNote, it's like, oh, but there's like so many things I'm proud about, and I can share, and I can be like talking about CNote like nonstop for, forever. So I think one thing that definitely, we can definitely talk about metrics, right? And metrics are we deployed over 100 million, like we've raised, like over 200 million. We've gone through, a couple of funding rounds, and, we work with retail investors, but we also work with corporate investors and corporate, meaning clients and our corporate clients, such as like MasterCard and PayPal. So like those are like really big names, right? And it's like amazing to see that it's something that, again, it's not just being discussed kind of like in the little groups, but it's getting to this big boardroom conversations, right? Where suddenly now MasterCard is thinking, it's like, no, like it's not good for me to have my cash, right, sitting kind of like just like in another big bank, like not really knowing what's happening there, but actually do want to put it and work towards impact just because my shareholders are asking for it, right? And my employees are asking for it. And this is something that I want to put on my, social channels. And this is something I want to put on my, in my annual report. And this is something that I want to talk about, my like quarterly earnings call. So I think when I think about kind of like the success of CNote, I think there's twofold, right? Like I think there's one that I do believe we do like an amazing job and continue doing and again, our job, I think will not end for a while, just on this education piece, like educating investors, retail investors, like what's possible. And hopefully that will, spark more conversations. Hopefully that will roll over into, younger generations. And also like the education that we're doing with, big institutional clients, explaining to them that there's now other options that exist that can help you, work on your D&I agenda, right? Or some other agenda that they have, when it relates to ESG. And again, your money can be a part of that agenda. It can be a part of the solution. So I think education piece, and again, all the big clients that we close, I think that those are kind of like a big wins for us. And I think for all of us, right, that now those clients actually thinking, or those companies already thinking about the impact that they can be creating with their balance sheet. And then obviously about the communities, again, like I like nothing makes me happier. Just like read another success story from one of our partners and understanding like how the capital that they received, via CNote from our clients help to build affordable housing, unit, right? Or help to open another business, or help the community to, again, to rebuild, after the hurricane, or last year, right? Like when COVID happened and when all the businesses were shut down. I'm sure a lot of the listeners probably know about this, stimulus package and, PPP loans that were announced and were facilitated by the government. But again, like, our partners have been a big part of that program. And so like understanding that, our investors were a part of that package, meaning like they actually, their capital went towards supporting those communities that were really suffering, that were, on a lockdown, and they still need to survive just because they need to be reopened and keep serving their communities. That what makes me, the happiest. And so that's something that I definitely like, makes me happy every time I wake up in the morning, knowing that I can keep working on CNote and make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's so important as a founder, right? To connect back to the purpose and to understand what you're working on and that you're going in the right direction. So that's incredible. And congrats to that. And hopefully you celebrate a lot too on that journey, because I know sometimes you always feel like you have to push the boulder further, but sometimes also so important to just take a break and a breather and celebrate those successes, right? And I mean, you said 200 million raised. That's incredible. Like, tell us, what was that journey like as a woman too? And did you have any experiences that you think could help other women in fintech, but also in the startup ecosystem, raise and create diverse boards as well?
Yeah. So I just want to clarify, like when I talk about 100 and 200 millions, those are the numbers that it's our clients' numbers, right? So those are like the clients' capital that we brought onto the platform and that we deployed in the community. So that's kind of like the measure of the success, one of the measures of the success that we're using. And then we did go through a couple of financing rounds, and we've gone the last year. We closed our seed round, and that was also quite an experience, closing that in the middle of the pandemic, like in the middle of like lockdown and navigating all that. And so definitely, great experiences on both sides, dealing with clients like MasterCard and PayPal, and then, dealing with investors, like institutional investors in the company. I would say, I think one thing that I constantly have to remind myself is, I like when I started this journey, and especially fundraising journey, I suffered a lot from the imposter syndrome, and kind of like that feeling that like I'm not enough, or I'm not good enough, or again, something is really wrong with me and with my company, because all their points of references that I had was what I've been reading in TechCrunch, right? And TechCrunch stories it's typically, it takes like a week, right, to raise on like 10 million on an idea or like on a deck. And it's wonderful, and I'm happy for the founders that do that, but it's also like not 99.9999% of the cases, right? Like that just happens so rarely, and yet that's what makes news. And so I think, again, like when I was going through this, and, my co-founder and I, when we were going through this like financing journey and funding journey, that kind of like what I always like, I struggled quite a lot, because especially every time you hear the no, you're like, ooh, like now it's taking me 3 months, right? And I'm still not getting enough yeses, right, to get to the right number. And so again, I think having the right network around me and kind of like doing a lot of this reflective practices, right, and kind of like centering myself, and again, really understanding that like my journey is unique journey in a way, right? So like I should not be like really comparing myself to others, just because again, like everyone's journey is different, and at the same time, my journey is not that unique, especially when it comes to women fundraising, because unfortunately, we do not tell enough of those stories, right? And very rarely women go through the journey where, again, it's a week and, someone raised, $10 million, just like an idea. We just did not have that luxury. Again, I wish that, my daughter at some point, will have that luxury, but unfortunately, this is not the reality right now. And so I think, again, on one side, just like stop comparing yourself to others, and just like really be comfortable with the fact that, again, your journey is a very unique journey, and you just, as long as you do your best, like that's the best you can do. And also at the same time, probably, sharing maybe some of your war stories, right, with other women founders, just to also understand that you're not alone. And again, your journey in some cases is not that unique. And again, we are similar in that way, that it is harder for us, and it's still hard.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I love the comment about the war stories and sharing those. And we did do a fundraising boot camp at the Guild that's still recorded. It's 8 hours of I think a treasure chest of like information of founders sharing and also investors sharing very practical advice around fundraising. And we have an investor list that has a spreadsheet associated to it too, to kind of structure that whole process. And I'll put the link in the show notes as well. Everybody can download that and also look for investors that have specifically said they're interested in supporting female entrepreneurs. But we've also done a study and asked the entrepreneurs, what were your experiences raising from female angel investors? And there is also a lot of bias towards the angel female investors, which was really interesting to see because they tend to write a little bit of a smaller check and take more time in the due diligence. So I just wanted to see if you had that same experience, or if it was easy for you to raise from female investors, or if this was even a focus for you on your fundraising journey, or did you just want to get the right check from the right person with the right background?
I mean, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, I feel like we could do like another whole hour on our fundraising journey and kind of like everything we learned, because there's definitely it was definitely a wonderful journey and many friends. But just to respond to your question about female angel investors, I don't know how unique we are in this way, but we actually have I think the major kind of like angel, women angel groups in our cap table. We have ST Angels, we have 37 Angels, we have Pipeline Angels. So I feel like all the big names of, again, those like wonderful women angel groups and networks, like we have them all. And so that's kind of a fun journey to be on. And actually, that's actually one of the things that Kat, my co-founder, and I, we also were very intentional about, because we do feel that as we rise and, other women rise. And so like for us, it's almost like right now, it's like, well, like we just can't fail, because like we can't let, other women angels fail, just because like we feel like, they trusted us with their money, and it would be so wonderful to have an amazing exit just to get, so not just like for us, but like for all our women angels that we have. And we have a lot of women angels on there, on the list. And so I think this is a wonderful, network to connect to. And again, I'm happy to connect if anyone and talk more about it if interested. And it's a great group. I think again, given our space, that we in fintech, I think you tend to have less women angels, just because I think a lot of, maybe there's just genuinely not a lot of women like in finance, right? Like broadly, who can actually understand that and then feel comfortable, because I do feel a lot of women invest on kind of like that connection, gut feel check, and often they're right, but they just like using different tools, right, to assess the investment. But we got lucky that we got all the wonderful angels, women angels on the cap table, and even in our seed round, we actually had a women-led fund, and they were also part of the round, and we are super happy about that.
That's amazing. That's great to hear. So lots of movement there as well. I know there's a lot of micro funds that are being started by women in different industries. So, and we always add them to our investor list as well. So it's not just a one-time snapshot, but we're trying to keep that list also current and try to give it to as many founders who need it as a resource. So Yuliya, how can we help you? How can we help you grow CNote? Is there anything our community can do for you?
Oh gosh, what I would say, I would probably say like if someone, I know the community is pretty diverse, and so I think if there's someone who has connections with, associations, companies, partnership opportunities that again know that they're working on gender issues, on racial issues, on some other impact issues, I think it would be like an interesting way to connect, just because again, like we are finding that right now people are waking up to the idea that if I do care about diversity and inclusion, it's not just about hiring more women and hiring more people of color, right? It's also thinking about how and what am I doing with my money. And so we are finding wonderful opportunities on that front. And again, I think we're kind of like pioneer in the way where we also like help to people to like understand that. And so to the extent, your network, Guild network has those connections or maybe work in those areas, that would be like really, really interesting to connect. And as I mentioned, like financial education is a big topic of ours. It's it's something that I'm personally very passionate about. So like always happy to connect and brainstorm with people on that topic as well.
Amazing. So there will be a few women that will reach out to you and
I'm sure
I'll connect you, because that's one of my big passions, connecting folks to each other.
Yeah.
So Yuliya, thank you so much for joining us here today, and all the best of luck.
Thank you so much, and so nice to connect too.
If you're inspired, then subscribe to our channels on YouTube, on our social media channels at Get Gilded, and also on our platform, letsguild.com. You can also sign up to our newsletter to get news about the latest and greatest in inspiring stories from female founders, entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators in the Guild. I'll see you next time.